I'm taking you in.
Right.
11 dark and ultra-maniacal Batman Beyond villains explained in detail. When a new Batman animated show was envisioned back in the late 90s, the head of programming at WB wanted a teenage version of the character. However, this posed a problem with the hero's narrative and character, as Bruce Wayne took the mantle of Batman only after he matured into an adult. So the writers and designers came up with this revolutionary idea of placing the Batman in a futuristic Gotham of 2039. Wayne would transfer his cape and cowl to a teenager who would work under the supervision and tutelage of the old guard. Despite agreeing on this concept with the producers, Bruce Timm freaked out, partly because they wanted the show on air in less than a year. They all hustled to think of an effective storyline that retained the mythology fans knew of, and held on to the continuity of other earlier Batman shows of the 90s. Finally, as was shown in Batman Beyond's first episode, it was decided that Bruce Wayne's Batman would suffer from a mild heart problem, falling to the ground while saving a kidnapped victim. Bruce picks up a gun as a last resort to self-defense, a weapon that went against his ethos and principles, and thus he was sure that he is no longer fit to be Batman. "20 years later, Chance has him meet a young boy named Terry McGinnis, whose father was killed by a corporate shark named Derek Powers, wanting to take over Wayne Enterprises. And the rest, as they say, became history. Batman Beyond's gripping and compelling storyline made it probably the best alternate version of Batman. The evolution of Bruce Wayne as a character and his acceptance of his retirement showed a genius new aspect to the character, as his decision was not just noble, but also mature.
Never again.
With new technology to play with, the creatives worked wonders to give the show a futuristic look and feel. However, one of the greatest contributing factors to Batman Beyond's incredible legacy is its villains. The villains were well developed and were given storylines and backstories just as grim and heavy as Batman's own. In this video, we will take you on a trip down the memory lanes of Gotham, so hop into your Batmobiles and get ready to be thrilled by the young Silent Guardian and his refreshing enemies. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Number 1. The Stalker. Stalker used to be a hunter of big cats in the African jungles. His infamous success and skills led him to being wanted by Interpol in 3 countries. However, in one of his expeditions, he was attacked by a wounded panther. Stalker blamed himself for being careless and ended up losing his spine, which was broken in 5 places.
My back was broken in 5 places.
A team of doctors performed an excruciating surgery on him to give him a mechanically modified spine and extraordinary abilities. His strength, speed, and stamina were now enhanced, and he also developed heightened senses and agility. With his new powers, the Stalker tracked down the panther and killed it with his bare hands. Stalker drew motivation for life from the thrill of hunting, and now that he was overpowering all animals with ease, he had nothing to look forward to. But then he heard about Batman's return.
My life was over until I heard that the legendary Batman had returned.
Stalker believed that Batman was nothing but an ageless bat spirit that resided in Gotham's strongest warrior. Naturally, Stalker arrived in Gotham to hunt the dark demon of the concrete jungle.
You're the legendary Batman? The dark demon of the concrete jungle?
The Stalker made his appearance in the episode Bloodsport in Season 1 of Batman Beyond, kidnapping Matt, the younger brother of our teenage Batman, Terry McGinnis. When Matt asks Stalker if he is going to cut his heart out or eat his liver, Stalker rebukes him for being dramatic. Clearly, the Stalker is not a merciless or senseless killer, but rather someone who lives for the thrill of the hunt and is obsessed with honor in the sport. Prior to using Matt as bait, Stalker had lured Batman into a museum but was forced to retreat because of Batman's superior fighting skills. However, Stalker's expertise with booby traps put Batman in a tight spot. The villain seemed unstoppable until the young Dark Knight was able to use Stalker's spear to give him an electric shock. This led to a malfunction in Stalker's spine, which made him hallucinate, seeing Batman as the same panther who had changed Stalker's life many years before. In a fit of fright, the Stalker fled and disappeared in front of a speeding bullet train. In Season 2, the Stalker joined forces with the Batman to track down False Face. However, he remained a supervillain and made his final appearance as a member of the Iniquity Collective in Epilogue Justice League Unlimited Season 2.
Listen to my voice. Whatever you're seeing, it isn't real.
Number 2. Spellbinder. Ira Billings was a child psychologist working at Hamilton Hill High, the same school where Terry McGinnis studied. Billings felt that he was underpaid by the wealthy parents of the kids for whom he worked as a therapist. Frustrated, he devised a plan to steal from the parents. He would use his skills as a psychologist to bend the minds of the young students using his eyeball-like sphere to induce a trance, and then pry sensitive information about the parents out of his patients. This is how Billings became known as the Spellbinder and also the psychopsychologist. The spells would range from dystopian and nightmarish visions to utopian illusions of paradise. In episode 10 of season 1, Spellbinder's first victim is Chelsea, whom he compels to believe that she is part of an adventure. She thinks that she is picking up a statue and dropping it in a lava pool, but in reality, she steals an expensive statue from her father's study and drops it in a nearby stream.
What's wrong with you? That was a Foley original. Cost me 80 grand.
Spellbinder later retrieves the statue. His main intention is to become wealthy, and to achieve this goal, he indulges in crimes such as drug dealing, theft, and the aforementioned brainwashing. However, his victims are not always innocent children. He also managed to hypnotize Batman and Commissioner Barbara Gordon. Another of Billings' assets is his excellent knowledge of virtual reality technology. He uses his VR machine to provide his victims with intense levels of happiness by putting them in a world of their choice, feeding on their desires. Once they become addicted to this fake world, he blackmails them into committing crimes for him.
Rise and shine, Donnie. Time to pay the piper.
Please, put me back in. It hurts out here, please!
Billings wears an incredibly strange costume with spirals. It's as if the creators went on full psychedelic while designing this costume. Spellbinder often uses stealth tactics alongside his abilities and is one of the most notorious villains of Batman Beyond. Looking closely, it is evident that Spellbinder's powers and skills are similar to that of Scarecrow from the original Batman series and comics. They both use hallucination and brainwashing as a means of furthering their notorious agendas. Spellbinder might have superior technology to Scarecrow, but it is difficult to say who is the more powerful supervillain overall.
You think I'd learned nothing from our previous encounters?
Number 3. Inque. Little light is thrown upon Inque's origin, and her backstory is not revealed in the animated series, though the comics reveal her depressing and compelling story. Inque grew up in a poor, war-torn country where devastation and violence reigned. She went to a refugee camp with her parents, but the horrors of the Civil War followed her there. Slave trading gangs killed Inque's parents and sold her to buyers. She was eventually smuggled into Gotham City, and the first chance she got, she fled her captors. However, she was still a young girl with no acquaintances in a foreign land. She ended up volunteering for a secret experiment in order to earn whatever money she could. However, Inque was pregnant at the time, and the doctors experimenting didn't care about her condition. Instead, they were intrigued to know the outcome. To her surprise, Inque became a biogenic mutant. After giving birth, she left her daughter Deanna Clay in the care of the church and continued to provide for her from a distance. Inque used her newly acquired powers, which included shape-shifting, telescopic vision, and superhuman strength, to become a skilled mercenary and a criminal for hire. Many years later, Inque is forced to seek refuge with someone who she could trust entirely, and so she turned to her daughter Deanna. Deanna took her in, giving her daughterly love and care. And in return, Inque told her child all about her bank accounts and ways to access them. However, Deanna betrayed her mother and sought to steal her money. When Inque asked Deanna why she did it, Deanna responded that her mother never gave her anything except money, and it was foolish on her mother's part to expect anything else.
You never gave me anything except money, Mother. How did you expect me to turn out?
Inque's powers were unique. The experiment transformed her into a metahuman, and her body was basically a thick liquid that she could utilize to take different forms, spreading tentacles or creating weapons. She could flatten herself to escape a blow and could regenerate later. However, water and other solvents were her weakness, as they caused changes to her DNA, taking away her ability to transform or shapeshift.
Batman. And who are you, Sunshine?
Blight will do.
Number 4. Blight. Derek Powers was clearly one of the greatest villains of the Batman Beyond animated series. Powers was a business magnate who intended to take over Wayne Enterprises. To a certain extent, he resembled Lex Luthor in his sadistic and savage nature, but possessed limited wit, like John Daggett from Dark Knight Rises. Nevertheless, his cruel intentions and subsequent transformation into Blight made him Batman Beyond's arch-enemy. Powers succeeded in taking over Wayne Enterprises and renamed it Wayne Powers. He used the company's R&D to create a lethal nerve gas and intended to sell it to the Minister of Casnia. When Terry's father, Warren McGinnis, acquired evidence of the existence of the gas, Powers had him murdered.
Honey,
Dad?
Eventually, Terry exposed Powers to the nerve gas, but his doctors were able to place him under extreme radiation to contain the effects of the deadly gas. This exposure to radiation transformed him into a metahuman with a black skeleton blanketed by green radiation. From then on, Powers called himself Blight. Yes, it's a bit of a pretentious name, but it certainly suits his nature. Blight became insanely powerful, gaining the ability to shoot beams of radiation. His body is so hot that even a simple touch can melt walls and metal. However, in addition to his changed physiology, the radiation also drove Powers to insanity. In the Batman Beyond comics, we learn that he doesn't remember anything from his past except that Batman caused his transformation. As Alfred once put it, some men just want to watch the world burn.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And Powers is the only one in the series with the potential to see through such a goal. Powers would hide his hideous look by wearing expensive synthetic skin. However, once his true identity is revealed to the world, he begins wreaking havoc on Gotham. Another reason for Blight's remorselessness and deteriorating mental state could be his sheer despair at his own incurable condition. This despair compounded when his own son tried to hunt him down with Terry's help.
If you can find my father and lure him into the net, the cell can weaken him enough to hold him.
Derek Powers was a very compelling and memorable character, but unfortunately, he was given a very run-of-the-mill ending. Nevertheless, Blight's grim and gripping story continues in the Batman Beyond comics, and we hope to someday see him in a live-action film.
You don't have to do this, Shriek.
But I do. And the name Shriek now. I'll show you why.
Number 5. Shriek. Walter Shriek first appeared in the episode Shriek as the titular sound-bending supervillain. He was initially the owner and chief sound engineer of Shriek Sound Laboratories, which was an organization funded by Wayne Powers. Walter contacted Powers to get more investment for a suit he had created that worked on acoustical amplification and manipulation. The suit could also focus infrasonic waves to easily destroy solid objects. However, in order to receive the funding, Powers first assigned Shriek the task of killing Bruce Wayne.
I want you to solve a problem for me. What? Not what. Who?
In an attempt to do so, Shriek came face to face with Terry, who damaged his suit, the malfunction leaving him deaf. The sound genius now sought revenge against Terry. He made an elaborate plan in which he used the Tower of Babel as a giant tuning fork, and from there, he emitted sonic waves that turned the city animals crazy and violent. In the next phase of his attack, he interfered with the air molecules in the city to disrupt human speech and communication. Shriek was now holding the city at ransom and demanded that Batman submit to him without resistance.
He wants Batman. That's his price.
The common people of Gotham turned against their new silent guardian and watchful protector, going so far as to side with Shriek, saying that he was just seeking a little revenge. Bruce tells Terry that he doesn't have to surrender himself, that he didn't take up the mantle for the gratitude of the people. The episode contributed to the maturation of Terry's character from a teenage Batman to a grown-up superhero. It's important to note this episode's huge implications on the remainder of the series in this regard, and later, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. After all, this episode is probably what inspired Nolan to construct a similar plot in his film, when Joker holds the city at ransom and requests Batman's public appearance.
Batman must take off his mask and turn himself in.
Creators paid utmost attention to detail when it came to the laws of physics involved with designing and conceptualizing Shriek's cybernetic costume. The suit was able to generate targeted infrasonic beams, acted as a muting device capable of generating absolute silence, and could amplify any desired sound. Mr. Shriek ultimately became a victim of his own creation, the sound genius ending up with an unsound mind. Number 6. The Terrific Trio. The Terrific Trio was a team of metahuman heroes who appeared in the episode titled Heroes, which charts their rise and fall. When a particular fusion experiment went south, 3 researchers were exposed to high levels of radiation, leading to their mutation. The group consisted of a 2D man with an elastic body who could stretch to extraordinary lengths. Freon, who could control ice and could fly, and Magma, who had super strength and a molten body. Does this remind you of a similar team from another universe? The team realized their potential, given their new superhuman powers, and they resolved to use their gifts for good. They become a media sensation and gain popular appreciation, and in no time they even have their own tower. During a hostage situation, they are able to successfully save a little girl and take down the bad guys, although she is frightened by the appearance of Magma. Magma is enraged by this, and by the fact that he cannot even touch his girlfriend Freon.
I can't even hold you in my arms anymore.
Hodges then contacts the terrific trio and tells them that there might be a way to cure them of their mutation. A DNA scan shows that the abnormalities are not just irreversible, but it could also make them mentally unstable. By this point, the team had come under attack from General Norman and his men. When confronted, Hodges reveals that he orchestrated the particle experiment accident in order to kill Michael Morgan, who became Magma, so that he could have Mary Michaels or Freon for himself. Now the terrific trio's mental state had taken a nosedive. A close friend betrayed them, they were under attack by the military, and their former popularity had turned to hate and disrespect from the people. Left disgusted and in despair, the three decided to finish what Hodges had started. They resolved to relaunch the experiment, even though it had the potential to destroy all of Gotham. It is well known that although the show had heroism with unswerving resolve, it also indulged in parody and satire. In this case, the clear target was Marvel's Fantastic Four. The power of the terrific trio clearly resembles the power of Mr. Fantastic, The Thing, Human Torch, and Invisible Girl. However, this episode clearly deviates from expectations of a typical superhero team, portraying dark and villainous characters with tragically wretched backstories.
Hello, Gotham. Joker's back in town.
Number 7. Joker.
I think you and I are destined to do this forever.
Of course they are destined to be together because, let's face it, Batman loses a bit of his charm without his archenemy. 8 years before Christopher Nolan gave us Heath Ledger's incarnation of the Joker, writers Bruce Timm, Glenn Murakami, and Paul Dini worked wonders in penning Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. The direct-to-video film release in 2000 brought the villain back into the world of Bruce Wayne, allowing him to face off with former Batgirl and now Commissioner of Gotham City Police Department Barbara Gordon and Terry McGinnis, the all-new teenage Batman. The film's story is in continuity with the Batman Beyond animated series. The movie's uncut version shows Barbara explaining to Terry how the Joker attempted to transfer his memory and DNA into a kidnapped Robin, the mantle at the time being held by Tim Drake. Joker wanted to turn Robin into young Joker, but before the transformation could finish, Drake shot and killed his captor. Many years later, Robin's transformation is completed and Tim Drake returns as the Joker. This Robin turned Joker had all the dark, gritty, and grim elements that we associate with the Joker from the comics, shows, or the films that he features in. An essential element was missing from most other Batman Beyond villains, and only the Joker could bring about a true sense of anarchy and chaos with his new and sinister plan to bring Gotham to its knees. The film puts Terry into a tough spot as he has to fight the unyielding ghost of Bruce Wayne's past. However, in an extremely satisfactory climax, Terry will have to face the Master of Chaos alone with no help from his backstory.
Look out! Down!
Number 8. Curaré. As is the case with most Batman Beyond animated series villains, Curaré's backstory is more detailed in the supporting comic series than in the show. According to the comics, Curaré used to be a monk in the Himalayas and lived with her surrogate brother Kai-Ro along with other monks. But while Kai-Ro saw the ashram as his home, Curaré felt it was nothing but a cage, and the elder monks were her keepers. Eventually the great moment arrived where the next Dalai Lama would be chosen. The traditional method was to select a name from an ancient urn, but the monks tried a different method this time. They placed several objects on a table and only one of them belonged to the last Dalai Lama. Cairo was selected to pick up one of the items from the table, and he chose a ring. This ring was in reality a Green Lantern's ring, and as Cairo touched it, the ring activated and he became the Green Lantern of Sector 2814. However, by this point, Curaré had asked the monks to select a name from the urn. The ring sensed foul play, revealing that Curaré had replaced all names in the urn with her own. She was banished from the ashram, blaming Cairo for her treatment. Later, she visited a dark monastery that performed experiments on her, causing her to develop blue pigmentations and a severe facial disfigurement. However, this ordeal turned her into one of the greatest assassins alive. Curaré joined the Society of Assassins and was tasked with taking down Barbara Gordon's husband and DA, Sam Young. According to the Society's code, failure meant death. Curaré held unimaginable knowledge of killer tactics and used a scimitar that could cut through any object and even through bullets. Due to the earlier experiments and their disastrous results, she keeps her face veiled in white cloth. Number 9. Willie Watt. The creators wanted to make Batman a teenager who went to school and did his homework, when he was not saving Gotham. Naturally, there were going to be villains who hailed from his school but somehow got superpowers. One such infamous character was Willie Watt. He was a regularly bullied and fragile kid who was often rebuked by his father, wanting him to toughen up and face the world. One day, Willie sought to steal a powerful robot named Gollum, but a mechanical failure caused a bond to be built between Willie's mind and Gollum's mechanics so that Willie could control Gollum from any distance without the need of a remote control. However, Terry McGinnis stopped Willie before he could use Gollum to kill his father. Willie ended up in a juvenile prison, and Terry visited his old friend from school but noticed that he had become more nefarious and powerful. Willie now possessed increased strength and telekinetic powers. Willie fled the prison, attacking his bully Nelson Nash and trying to molest his crush, Blade. The socially awkward nerd did not become a villain by choice, but the circumstances forced him to commit crimes, including the attempted murder of his father. While we are not justifying the things that he did, we are simply wondering if perhaps Willie's immediate surroundings and his constant bullying were contributing factors to his violent outburst.
All the time in the world.
Number 10. The Royal Flush Gang. New and distinct villains are constantly being introduced in the DC universe. The Royal Flush Gang was a well-to-do family who indulged in crimes for kicks and wore suits based on the theme of a deck of cards. No, they didn't come from poverty, they didn't need money, no one forced them into crime. However, the way they derived pleasure from robbery and other crimes was just sad and dark. Their compulsive obsession led them into various confrontations with Batman and various other DC superheroes. In their appearance in Batman Beyond, they don't showcase any superhuman abilities or powers, relying instead on high-tech gadgets and using a card-shaped platform to fly around the city. The team comprised of King, Queen, Jack, Ten, and Ace. Ten, the daughter of Queen and King, whose real name is Melanie, eventually developed semi-romantic feelings for Terry, whom she met at a bar. According to another story arc, the members of the Royal Flush Gang family were subjects in a metahuman research project that gave them superhuman powers. The team comprised of Ace, who had immense mind-bending powers and can unhinge anyone's mind with a single gaze, Jack, who was empowered with superhuman agility and elasticity, King, who could shoot plasma bolts through his cane, Queen, who could reshape any metal through her telekinetic abilities, and Ten, who had superhuman durability and strength. Interestingly, the gang has been around for quite some time and made its first appearance in the comic Justice League of America number 43, which was published in 1966. Since then, they have appeared several times in various comic series, but their codenames remain the same. Apart from Batman Beyond, they've appeared in Justice League Doom and live-action shows like Arrow and The Flash. Number 11. Mr. Fixx. Mr. Fixx was one of the lesser-known but significant villains of Batman Beyond. He was a henchman of Powers and looked after the operations at Wayne Powers. When Powers got the hint that Terry's father, Warren McGinnis, held sensitive information about the nerve gas that Powers had successfully invented, the evil businessman sent Mr. Fixx to assassinate Warren and retrieve the disc. Mr. Fixx not only killed Warren, but painted the scene with graffiti to make it look like the Joker's gang had done it. However, when Batman later confronted Mr. Powers and Mr. Fixx in the shipment yard, the latter attempted to flee in a hovercraft loaded with nerve gas. Fixx appeared in just one other episode named Rebirth, but his nefarious activities had huge implications in Terry's life. So, if you wondered why we included a low-level henchman, then look no further than his actions and the consequences that followed. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.